Healthcare hasn't struggled with AI because of lack of algorithms, of lack of models, or guardrails, so on and so forth. It is struggling because a lot of companies have tried to introduce AI without respecting the healthcare's reality.
Welcome to Shaping Healthcare, a podcast by CitiusTech. I'm your host, Laurel Rockle. AI in healthcare is neither new nor is it going away anytime soon. But initiatives in AI adoption in healthcare frequently fall short and fail to bring a return on investment. So the question becomes, how do we make AI safe and compliant for healthcare? How do we make it fast and fully able to scale for healthcare solutions? So to dig into those answers, we are joined by Ramki, Chief Technology Officer at CitiusTech, who oversees the new AI platform, Knewron. Ramki, thank you so much for joining me today.
Very glad to be here today to talk on this all important topic. I think the industry is at an inflection point right now, so it will be an exciting time to discuss some of these aspects with you today.
Excellent. We're so glad to have you. This is going to be a really great conversation and very exciting new platform on the scene at CitiusTech that we can dig into a little bit deeper. So as I mentioned in our intro, healthcare has been experimenting with AI for years now, but not all these initiatives are able to scale or bring ROI and really fit the solutions that healthcare needs. So Ramki, in your view, what are some of the key barriers or perhaps misconceptions that have held back AI adoption in healthcare?
That's an excellent question, Laurel. Um, when I look across payers, providers, MedTech organizations with whom CTS Tech primarily works with, the story has been consistent. Right? Healthcare hasn't struggled with AI because of lack of algorithms, of lack of models, or guardrails, so on and so forth. It is struggling because a lot of companies have tried to introduce AI without respecting the healthcare's reality. uh, I can think about two or three major hurdles that we have seen challenges. One of the major barrier has been the context fragmentation. Healthcare workflows actually span across clinical data, claims data, operational systems, and regulatory data. Most of the AI initiatives operated on a slice of that context. Say, for example, clinical notes or claim data without the ability to understand the full workflow. So, as a result, AI or agentic outputs could not be trusted to drive the real decisions. So, that is one of the major barrier that I've seen, which is context fragmentation. If I were to think about the next big thing, it's another misconception is that as the large language models became better, the AI can scale along with it as well. In reality, within healthcare, AI's scale has to be achieved through governance and traceability. And if an AI recommendation affects reimbursement, patient safety, or regulatory compliance, then organizations need to know exactly how that output was generated, what was used, and what policies were applied together. Without that kind of a transparency, AI algorithms stay stuck in pilots, regardless of the capabilities that are given by the models themselves. And the third one that I would think is that the deployment side of the story. Many solutions require data to leave the enterprise boundaries, or they depend on vendor specific platforms. For many of the healthcare leaders that we have been working with, still this is a non-starter, right? The data sovereignty and control are foundational in our industry, and we need to go through this transformation before the AI scale settles in. And finally, I would think that organizations tend to underestimate the operating model shift that they need to go through as an organization or as an enterprise as well. AI is not just a tool, right? It is a new participant in business workflows. Uh, Without a platform that embeds compliance by design, quality checks, and human oversight, I think AI simply cannot scale responsibly in healthcare. So those are some of the barriers that I could think, which are actually, bringing us back to the reality within the healthcare space.
You made some really great points there. You touched on a lot of great things to really highlight that healthcare has a lot of layers to it, and therefore the safety and the scale and how that gets deployed is really critical in so many ways. And something that you mentioned earlier, Ramki, was you said inflection point. There's an inflection point in healthcare, and I want to dig a little deeper into that. Like, why do you believe we have reached this inflection point, and does this mean then that healthcare enterprises have to rethink how they are building and deploying their AI?
Yes, absolutely, Laurel. I think that for me, the inflection point is not theoretical anymore. It is actually operational. It is happening right now as we speak. For example, payers are facing regulatory pressure to simplify their administrative processes. Similarly, providers are dealing with workforce shortages and margin compression. On the other side, MedTech companies are navigating through longer approval cycles and tighter post market surveillance. In all such scenarios, the traditional incremental automation is not just good enough. You know, so that is the inflection point that we are talking about here. The same times, enterprises today understand that AI must be really production grade, means it has to operate inside the regulated workflows, not just sit outside as an advisory tool or a tool to which people can consult, take its output, and then try to implement. Rather, this requires a fundamentally different architecture, a process model, the data handling also. So this is where the agentic systems becomes extremely critical. Instead of just asking, how can AI assist a user? Today, organizations have started asking which steps of any workflow can the agentic AI execute safely and autonomously, and where must human remain in control? Now, that shift forces the enterprises to rethink everything, right? From data ingestion pipelines to governance models to the process flows that have been enacted already. AI actually must be contextualized. They have to become auditable, and they have to be continuously evaluated as well. So the inflection point is realizing that agentic AI needs to be treated as a core infrastructure, not just as an experiment anymore. So that's the most important thing. We have been having such specific conversation with many of our clients, and we believe organizations that do not make this shift, say in the next 6 to 12 months, will find themselves stuck with the fragmented tool sets, while the competitors probably will start building up scalable and agentic driven operations. So this inflection point is such a critical aspect for everyone in this industry, Lauren, at this stage.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's as you said, it changes everything and how you look at it when we're looking at it in this context. And you mentioned the timeline of 6 to 12 months. I would say, just personally in our episodes that we've had for this podcast, just even within a few episodes, there's been so many changes as I'm talking to people within the CitiusTech. And when we're looking at that transformation and how we have to look at things differently, where does Neuron fit? Where does it fit? How is it shaping this future of healthcare?
That's a great question. So this has been the most discussed aspect within CTS Tech as we started building this platform. See, the agentic AI evolution is happening at a breathtaking speed on the other side. It is very difficult for enterprises to continuously calibrate and do the catch up with that kind of an evolution that is happening outside. So what we need is a platform like Neuron that fits into this transformation by acting as an agentic backbone for healthcare enterprises. So we built Neuron not just as a co-pilot, but rather it has to become an AI fabric. This platform should connect data, knowledge, the agents, the workflows, the human, and the governance into a single operational layer. So it is designed to sit inside clients' virtual private networks, which means the data sovereignty is ensured, and they can seamlessly integrate with all their existing ecosystem applications, and then they can orchestrate agents and AI safely across multiple workflows. Another aspect that makes Neuron very powerful is its ability to turn AI into an execution layer. What it means is that neuron agents just do not generate insights, right? They natively retrieve evidence, they can interpret policies, they can execute steps, and then they can escalate when the decision needs a human intervention. And all this will be happening with full traceability through audit logs and other aspects. So, for example, in a payer workflow, neurons agents can ingest documents, they can apply coverage rules, they can assemble the decision packets themselves, and then route the cases with audit ready evidences to the practitioners. Similarly, in the medtech industry, neurons agents can actually manage design controls. They can provide traceability and then validation artifacts as we execute through the agentic workflows themselves. So, in short, our intent with Neuron is to making AI operationally reliable for our clients. Something the healthcare leaders can actually depend on, not just be happy with, experiment with. So that's the whole idea of Neuron, into how it fits into this transformation.
Mhm. You mentioned the word native as you were describing how Neuron works, and I've seen Neuron get described frequently as healthcare native AI. Could you elaborate further on what that means for healthcare organizations?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question actually. That is one of our fundamental differentiational aspect that we have ensured right from day one, that the platform itself is built with around the healthcare constraints, industry constraints. So, for example, in Neuron, healthcare standards like FIRE, X12, ICD, CPT, CMS policies, and similarly, there are MedTech quality frameworks. These are not just given as bolt-ons or add-ons, right? They are part of the core knowledge layer that we have built within Neuron. Agents actually reason over healthcare knowledge graphs and vector stores that reflect real-world healthcare semantics. Similarly, healthcare native also means compliance by design. What do we mean by that is that every workflow, agentic workflow, embeds HIPAA aligned privacy controlled, role based access, and audit trials are embarked. Now, AI actions actually are evaluated continuously against all these policies, and risk thresholds are monitored, and the escalation mechanism automatically kicks in. Equally important aspect within Neuron is the data sovereignty that we talked about earlier. Neuron runs inside clients' VPCs or on-prem, and it works within their chosen AI gateways, which means there is no forced data movement across any of the network, and then there is no forced vendor lock-in. So it's cloud agnostic, it's model agnostic, and for healthcare organizations, this means agentic AI that behaves like a regulated system, not just as a consumer grade tool, right? And it also understands the boundaries, it respects the governance parameters, and produces outputs that can actually withstand the audits and trials. So that's the nuance about Neuron, and what we actually say when we say it is healthcare native. These are the aspects that actually sets it apart from rest of the commonly used AI agentic tools.
I'd like to dig into that a little further as you're talking about these different workflows and the regulations and compliance around medtech. So, how does Neuron embed healthcare context into its AI workflows?
That's the biggest challenge that we have actually solving for today. We have solved, we have been evaluating this aspect continuously. So Neuron's context is that Neuron embeds context through a layered approach. For example, at the foundation level, there is a robust data ingestion pipeline. See, we have structured data, unstructured documents, policies, guidelines, images. There are many various forms of data that we need to ingest within the platform. So these are ingested, normalized, and indexed into healthcare knowledge graphs, vector stores, and relational databases. So this ensures that agents can actually retrieve authoritative contexts at the right point in time whenever it is needed. On top of this memory layer that we have built, we have also created a foundational agentic RAG system. So the retrieval through this RAG is not just a passive ornament on top of it, right? Agents actually decide what is the actual context that they need, what is the shortest path to reach that data source within the agent's memory, validate its relevance, and then ground the decisions based on those evidences that it can create. So that's the second aspect. Then there is a process context, right? One is at a platform level, while we have ingested a lot of data sets and they are available at a global level, when agents actually need to know within their specific workflow that they are operating then and there, what are the rules that they have to apply for each step. So whether it is a prior authorization workflow or claims review workflow or regulatory submissions or a compliance documentation exercise that we are doing, this this analogy of inferring the right process context during agentic runtime is the third most critical aspect that is ingested by the platform of Neuron. And finally, governing this context itself is always, it should always be active. Now, we have our Stevie award-winning quality and trust framework. So we have implemented and integrated the Q&T framework within Neuron's healthcare context evaluation. So this platform actually evaluates consistently for accuracy, biases, drifts that can happen, and the confidence level in real time, so that enforcing the human oversight, that decision, they are taken at the right point in time and nothing goes without being validated finally by a human at the end of the day. So putting together all these things, this ensures that neurons agentic AI decisions are always contextual, they are compliant, and they are defensible. So that's the whole important aspect of how we have built the healthcare context within the neuron.
It's very thought through. It's very thought through. Yeah, like all those different layers are all things that are, like you said, contextually a part of healthcare and incredibly important. And as we've been talking here, we're talking about how quickly and rapidly everything is changing and transforming, and being able to keep up with that within healthcare. I'm really curious to know about Neuron's role in that this AI agents play in modern healthcare product development. Is it have a role there?
Yeah, a lot of people actually tend to simplify the PDLC life cycles, as we call them, right? The product development life cycle phases, because there are so many generic tools that are available today in the market that they have made this entire process extremely seamless, right? Just give a spec at one end of the spectrum, and those tools can actually generate you the entire code base, right? So this simplification actually, unfortunately, doesn't work very well within healthcare's context or healthcare product development lifecycle. Because in modern healthcare product development, agentic AIs need to act as a specialized governed collaborators rather than completely autonomous, generating their own outputs, trusting their own outputs that are being generated. That's strictly a no-no within the PDLC life cycles of the healthcare. So that's where the neuron agents are designed with clear roles. They have personas, whether it is a regulatory interpretation or code generation, testing or validation, or compliance documentation generation. Each one of them actually follow a very different persona orientation. So they operate within those defined boundaries of the persona and collaborate through intelligent orchestration. Now, what is unique is that the neuron agents are actually grounded on healthcare context, as we spoke earlier. A testing agent actually understands the regulatory acceptance criteria. Similarly, a documentation agent actually knows what an auditor would expect as an output, and it can generate, it puts in those fields, it brings in those calibration directly. And a design agent actually aligns with the clinical and operational intent rather than purely taking a user interface view or an user experience view. So this transforms the entire PDLC. Instead of humans manually coordinating every steps, today neuron agents can execute in parallel, continuously validating the outputs against compliance and quality metrics and showing it in complete transparency to the end users. so that they can always be monitored, and interventions as and when it is needed, they can be provided as well. So developers and product leaders actually have moved up in the value chain when it comes to product development lifecycle. Today, they are focusing more on architecture, the clinical safety, the business outcomes that we are promising to the customers, rather than spending time on the coding standards, the guardrails that we need to build, so on and so forth. They are actually taken care by the neuron agents. They ensure consistency, standardization, coverage, traceability across multiple teams, and they can generate excellent code today. So that's where the neuron specializes on with respect to PDLCs.
Mhm. It sounds like there's almost like double security, or like maybe double layers, working alongside with the person to make sure all these steps are taken and in place, and that's really fascinating. And how do you say agentic PDLCs, are changing the way healthcare software is then built compared to a traditional approach?
See, whether it is healthcare software that we are building or anything, when we talk about software development life cycles or PDLCs, traditionally we have always seen them from two aspects, right? When do we call a PDLC to be executed successfully? One is about the quality of the product that it is generating. The other one is about what speed it is generating. So those are the two same aspects, I think, still will hold fort even in an agentic driven PDLC lifecycle on how the healthcare software is built, right? That being said, the traditional PDLCs are linear and predominantly they are human driven, in spite of a lot of automations that have happened in the last couple of decades. Quality and compliance checks happen pretty late in the cycle and often leading to a lot of rework. That's where I think the agentic PDLCs will shift in a major way. The way we operate, the intent and constraints we can define upfront as specifications for the agents to operate on. Agents can then plan and they can execute tasks either concurrently or in a sequential way, whichever way we want them to operate. They can validate the designs, they can generate the test scenarios, test cases, they can generate documentations in whichever formats that we want to create. And then the compliance checks can also happen in parallel together. So, what is critical in this entire aspect is the way we govern this entire PDLC execution. That's where Neuron's quality and trust framework that we talked about continuously evaluates the outputs for accuracy, bias, and drifts. Every artifact that is being generated with evidence, and it ensures traceability. So, as a result, what happens is the speed and assurance, quality assurance that we talked about, the result is there is a faster delivery that is possible with fewer surprises at the end of the game. For healthcare organizations, I believe this standardization is absolutely critical. This means they can actually innovate without compromising on safety or compliance. So the biggest PDLC change I would say is that still holds around those two aspects, speed and assurance, but they are delivered through an in an agentic way, which is far better. It is probably 5 to 10x faster, and the assurance with proper guardrails and governance, the quality can be ensured that it is top notch, if not better than the existing development community. It is at least can match the existing development outputs. So that's where the maturity has reached today.
Wow. Ramki, we always like to talk about case studies, real world examples, and I would love to hear about maybe some examples or any case studies you have about the kind of impact that Neuron has been having.
So we have started with a lot of proof of concepts for our clients, and the outcome of those proofs of concepts actually helped us to create the actual program, and it also helped us to build the trust in customers' mind to start using the platform. Right. Uh, we are actually seeing impact across multiple dimensions. For example, in PDLC engineering itself that we have been talking, and especially in the quality engineering space, Neuron's healthcare native agentic workflows have delivered an upward of 60% velocity acceleration, and they have always operated at about 95% accuracy levels. This pace and quality we were able to sustain throughout the execution of the project lifecycle, which is tremendous because the quality engineering process itself was shortened, a lot of rework was avoided, and also one of the most important aspects is that the independence of the quality assurance team as compared to the development team is very critical, so that when the validation happens, they are not biased. No, the quality team shouldn't be biased about how the delivery team has gone through their own experience of building the application or anything, right? So agentic AI or neuron agents have actually helped them to do that. Both the parties, whether the development community and the quality engineering community, starts with the same specs, right? User stories and the specs. While quality engineering team goes through their own agentic workflow of generating test scenarios, elevating boundary conditions, and then from there they create test cases, and test cases then gets converted into automated test scripts, and then you set up the entire test environment using agents. If you don't have realistic data sets for testing, you can use synthetic data generation to populate the test scenario, test bed, so that as the development team completes their execution through agentic life cycles, the quality engineering team was ready with their own agents, so that they all merged together, and then finally this independent verification and validation happened, and that tremendously elevated the entire output for us. So it was a great case study and customers loved the output, and we are continuing to work on that. And in some of the payer environments that we have seen, Neuron has enabled workflows to reduce manual effort, especially in the famous prior authorization workflows and claims operations, improving the overall turnaround times while strengthening their audit readiness. So this is a significant improvement, and it saves a lot of time for all those personas, whether it is medical coders or supervisors. They are able to save their time that they are actually spending on the desk, and agents can actually accelerate and they can assist them in every step throughout. Second thing that we have seen in provider settings is the revenue cycle management is the core. Right? The revenue cycle's core focus and documentation workflows became much more consistent, reducing the administrative burden and the leakages themselves from a quality engineering perspective. And in medtech industries, what we have seen is that some of our product teams could accelerate the design control, the validations, and the post market workflows themselves while improving traceability and compliance confidence with all the stakeholders who are involved in the process flows. So, these are some of the cases that we have seen across the board, whether it is in the engineering space, similarly in the modernization space, technology modernization, data migration, these kind of aspects. Also, we have seen tremendous help through neuron agents and through other agentic tools as well, right? So they have actually we have gained things that were especially in the modernization space, things that were seen as not a good enough candidature from an ROI perspective, because they cost too much to get rid of legacy and to bring in to modernize those systems. With agentic AI coming in, those became available today. Today, customers have started considering those projects that they have actually shelved for because of their inability to justify the ROI and the effort that it required. The agentic pattern, the agentic solutioning for them are actually opening up those budgets also with the customer. So we have started seeing a lot of modernization work that has started happening across the board. So what is most important for me is that these gains actually compound over the time when you are using a platform like Neuron, because Neuron is built with feedback loops. Whichever workflow that you are embedding the platform into, they actually learn as the agents run over and over again. So they learn, they develop their own personas, and so as the platform enables agents to learn from feedback and the workflows evolve, it also becomes much more intelligent and much more valuable over the period of time. With quality and trust framework governing the model drift, the bias drifts, and so on and so forth, we ensure that the data that flows back into the agentic training is actually extremely sanitized, and they do not pollute any of the existing data sets, if you will, right? So for me, Neuron is not just speeding up the work that we are doing. In fact, it is helping all our clients to operate with greater confidence, resilience, and right now they are also looking at the scalability aspect with much more confidence as well. So those are some of the examples that I can share with what we have done with our clients, Laura.
It sounds like such a tremendous positive impact across all parts of healthcare, from the providers to claims to the developers, and it's a really exciting platform, bringing a lot of really exciting results. So Ramki, thank you so much for joining us today and sitting down with us and explaining Neuron and this exciting future of healthcare.
Thank you so much, Laura, and looking forward for a wonderful 2026 as well as we are.
Absolutely.
The Shaping Healthcare podcast is brought to you by CitiusTech, a leader in healthcare consulting and IT services. To find out more about CitiusTech, visit citiustech.com. To listen to more interesting insights on healthcare technology and innovations, search and subscribe to the Shaping Healthcare podcast. Thank you for listening. If you want to share any feedback or would like to be featured in our podcast, do write to us at citiusvision@citiustech.com.